Hi everyone, I'm Carol Keller, independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Antioch, Illinois in the US, coming to you today with my Suite of the Month, which for September is the Tidings of Christmas Suite from the annual catalog. What is the Suite of the Month? Well, every month I feature a different suite and create 2 projects. If you buy the suite from me by the end of the month, I will send you the components to make both of those projects. So I've created 2 cards for this month's suite, and I will turn my camera around so that we can get started with the first project. All right, so here are the cards we're going to make today. And as you can see, there are 2 because we are cutting the designer series paper and taking out a section, and then we're going to use it on a second card. So for this one, you actually make 2 cards. You get 2 cards for the price of 1. So we're going to start with this one, so I'll leave that on top. And I'm going to use different pattern paper from the one that I used here, but the rest of the elements are going to be the same. And I will show you the components at the end that I used to make the cards. So this time we're going to start with an evening evergreen card base. Standard A2 card or A4 if that's what you use. And I'm just going to burnish it with my bone folder to flatten it. So this is, the front is 4 1/4 inches by 5 1/2, or if you are working with an A4 card, 10.5 centimeters by 14.9. And I'm going to bring in a piece of designer series paper, and I have already cut this down to 4 inches by 5 1/4, or if you're in metric, 10 by 14.4 centimeters. So now is the only really tricky part, which is how we cut it. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer. And the first thing we're going to do is mark it before we cut it. So I'm just grabbing a pencil. And we are going to mark it for an A2 card at 3/4 of an inch here. So I'm going to measure it this way. And it is a little bit hard to see because of the pattern paper. So keep that in mind, but I can usually see the indentation so I know where to cut. And then on this side, we're gonna mark it at 3 3/4 inches. So again, lining it up and making sure it's reasonably straight, and put a little mark. And then for the bottom, we mark that at 2 1/2 inches in. So I'm going to move this up so hopefully you can see it. So 2 1/2, and we put a little mark there. Now, if you are working on an A4 card, your measurements will be 2 1/2 centimeters down, so 2.5 centimeters, you'll put your mark. On this side, you will put it at 10 centimeters, and at the bottom at 5.8 centimeters. And now here's how we make the cuts. So I look for my mark up here, that's at, for me, 3/4 of an inch, which is right there. And then the one on the bottom at 3 3/4 inches. So I'm gonna line up those marks, those pencil marks, like this, and make my first cut. And that goes here. And then all I'm going to do is we're going to keep that point right in the channel as still. And I'm going to my bottom mark, which is right here, making sure that's in the channel and the point's in the channel. And I highly recommend that you cut from this edge, because if you try to start at the point, sometimes that will kind of scrunch the paper and you won't get a nice cut. So start from the bottom and then slice that. And there are your 3 pieces. And this one will be for the second card. So we'll put that aside for now. And these we will put right on the card front. And I'm just going to use my Stampin' Seal. You could also use multi-purpose liquid glue or tear and tape, whatever your favorite adhesive is. I'm going to get as close to that little corner as I can. And doing it, you know, with a border. So I'm going to leave about a 1/4 inch border. Maybe a little bit less. And then the same thing for this one. And it should meet right at that point, just like where you cut it. And centered at the top on all 3 sides. And then actually I'm going to bring in the other card base and we'll adhere that other piece and then move it out of the way. Just so it doesn't get lost in the shuffle. So you can pretty much work on both at the same time. And this one you line up with the corner, about like that. And so now you have the bases of both your cards with the pattern paper. And next we're going to do some stamping. I think we'll start with the inside sentiment. And I did cut, since it is dark cardstock, I cut some basic white. This is 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches or 10 centimeters by 14.4 centimeters. And we're going to stamp both of them with the sentiment on the inside. And we're going to do that in Misty Moonlight. Oops. There we go. Oops. Try that again. There we go. And then we're going to take the stocking stamp and we're going to stamp that in Soft Succulent. And even though it's pink and it's stained, it will not transfer. That pink will not transfer. So don't worry about that. One more. And so there is our inside of each card. But we're going to keep that stocking and that ink handy, but I think I'm going to put these in right away so the inside is complete using just my Stampin' Seal. And so the insides are done. And we will finish the rest of our stamping. And for that, I have some scraps that I've been using because we are going to stamp one of each of the stockings in each of these 3 colors: Soft Succulent, Misty Moonlight, and Cherry Cobbler. So because I've got the ink out, we will start with the Soft Succulent. And I'm going to turn it this way a little bit because I really would like to get both 2 of these on each one, which I will. And then we're going to cut them out. Make sure you clean in between to get the ink off. And now we've got the Misty Moonlight. I'm not sure if 2 will fit here. I don't think it's going to, so we'll just do 1 and then get another scrap. And then I'm also going to take a scrap of Soft Succulent and we will do the tags for both cards, but we're going to stamp in Misty Moonlight. I think we'll do 1 of each. And put those aside for the moment. And last but not least, the Cherry Cobbler. think we'll do it this way. And so we have now all of our stockings stamped for both cards. And our stamping is done. And so now I'm going to cut out all of the stockings. And I am also going to cut out, we'll save this, we'll punch when I come back, but I'm also going to punch out this piece in soft succulent and some of the berries in cherry cobbler. And then for this card, 4 of the holly leaves and again some more of the berries. So I will be right back. All right, so I have cut out all of the stockings and the other elements for both cards. And I'm going to grab the everyday label punch to punch these out. So for this one, I'm going to center it on one side so that I can add the other element. And then just trim this down a little bit so I can get the punch in there. And obviously it doesn't matter if I'm punching upside down because it's a symmetrical punch. So I'm just centering it again and making sure the whole thing fits. And then punching that out. And now we'll just finish our assembly. So for this card, I'm going to use May Your Days Be Merry and Bright. And I have for the little berries and for this piece, I have used adhesive sheets on the back so that I don't have to worry about adhering it. So let's see. I need to get it started maybe right here. Let's see. I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool to get, oh yes, we can do it right in the end. I see it right there. I don't need my Take Your Pick tool. If the adhesive covers it completely, just use your tool, but in this case I can peel it up from the bottom. And then lay it here so that the berries end up on the tag. And then they're going to stand out nicely once we put the red ones on. So the easiest thing is if they stay adhered to the back of the adhesive sheet and to your piece. These will be a little more challenging and I'll show you why. But here's how I get them off. I just lift with my Take Your Pick tool. Let me see if these will, yeah. And then pick it up with the other end, place it. And so that one is pretty easy. Again, pick it up off the paper, sort of loosen it, and then pick it up with the putty end and place it over the berry. Where it becomes challenging is where the little pieces come out of the paper. So it does have an adhesive sheet on the back. So you have to turn it over and sort of hold it with your fingernail and pop it up, pop the paper off. So it is a little trickier. If you can keep them on the paper, it works better. Let's try that again. Okay, so I slid it off. And I'm going to do the same thing and try and pick it up with my Take Your Pick tool and place it on. And so I will do the rest off camera and be right back. All right, so we've got all the berries now on the tag. And we're going to take one of each color of the stockings and just put them on with some Stampin' Seal. And we'll put this on with dimensionals. And I meant to say earlier too that if you wanted more contrast with the stem here, you could also cut this out in Evening Evergreen instead of in the soft Succulent. And then we're going to take some ribbon. This is Evening Evergreen Chevron weave ribbon, which is again part of the suite. And I'm grabbing my glue dots and putting a couple in to hold them together, to hold the two ends together like this. And then a couple more on the back to adhere to the card. So we're just going to tuck it behind a little bit. And there's our first card. And to finish the second one, pull that one up so you can see. For this one, I put the some holly and berries, and I do have a little bit of adhesive on the back. But I think I'm going to add a glue dot too, just to make sure it stays secure, since it doesn't cover the whole thing. Actually, I think I want those a little bit closer together. Let's see, we'll move this one. And then I will put the berries on as before. And one word of advice too, obviously I cut multiples. There are 6 of these on one die, and obviously I cut multiples, but my best advice is to cut a row and then place them on your project before you cut the next row, because when you do that, it flattens out the first set. So just use them as you make them. And our stockings. We'll position sort of like that. Again, using Stampin' Seal. And again, using our dimensionals. And in this case, I just have ends left, so mostly, so I'm going to use those. And last but not least, the ribbon. And tucking it behind. And there is our second card. So again, 2 for the price of 1. And obviously you can use whatever designer series paper from the pack you like the best, and just coordinate the colors accordingly. But I used these 3 colors specifically because they are found in the papers. And the same thing with the Sahara Sand, which is in this paper and in some of them. So that is project number 1. Bonus, 2 cards for the price of 1. So if you do buy the suite from me, you will get the components to make both cards. And that is the first one, like I said, and there will be another video with the second project for the Suite of the Month, Tidings of Christmas. Right, but before I say goodbye, I'd like to show you the components that make up the suite. First of all, we have the Tidings and Trimmings stamp set, which is, as you saw, photopolymer. Love it, so you can position right where you want your stamp to go. And then we also have the Christmas Trimmings dies. which I like to cut out. Whoops, it's upside down, so that you can see what you have in there. So several stamps you can cut out. You can stamp and then cut out. And then other elements, some of which we use today, that don't have stamped images to go on them, but they are obviously companions to those images. So as you can see, there are 6 of those little berries on one die, and you get 4 holly leaves that you can cut out at once. There are actually 2 dies for that, here and here. And then you have the outline of the star plus the detail. And same thing for this, the outline and to cut this one out and some detail. So I did not cut out the solid ones, but I know that they're in there. And then we also have, of course, the Evening Evergreen Chevron weave ribbon, nice and thick and heavy. That's why I used a couple of glue dots, because I wanted to make sure it will adhere, because it is a little heavier. And then last but not least, our gorgeous designer series papers. And here they are, one side and then the other. And those are what make up the components of the suite. So again, thanks for joining me today. Remember that if you like what you see, to subscribe to my channel, click on the bell to be notified when I post new videos. I have, besides my suite of the month, I have paper pumpkin alternatives every month, cards, scrapbook pages, home decor items, and tips and techniques videos. So hopefully you will find something that you like. And thanks again for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon, everyone. Bye-bye.